Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Let's try to film this video for the third time. I've already attempted it twice. First time my audio got messed up because the electricity in this house is all weird. And so if I plug my computer in, the wave or the voltage or whatever fluctuates, and then it does weird stuff to my electronics. So if I ever end up just not here one day, it's because I probably got electrocuted to death by my house. The second time, my computer died in the middle of filming, and so that was that. And now the third time. So it's chapter 3. We're going to try it for the third time. Maybe it'll work. Let's jump into 2 Samuel chapter 23. There is a free PDF on the internet as always if you'd like to go grab it. When did these events happen? Well, King Saul died at the end of 1 Samuel. He became king about 1055, he died about 1055 BC after reigning in Israel for about 40 years. David became the king of Judah that same year. He would be king over just Judah for 7 years and 6 months before becoming king over all of Israel. Our characters for this chapter include David, of course, and then we were going to talk about Abner. Who's Abner? We've been talking about him. Abner was the chief military officer for Ishbosheth, who was kind of David's rival king in Israel. So we've got Abner leading Ishbosheth's army fighting against David. And then finally, we're going to talk about, we have Joab. Joab was the leader of David's army. And then we have Michal. This is Michal, the woman. This is Michal, the first wife of David. She was David's very first wife, and she was the daughter of King Saul. Consulting our map now, we are going to be mainly in the region of Judah. David lived in Hebron, which is in the tribe of Judah, their allotted territory. And Abner is also going to be buried in Hebron. So that's a little hint as to what might happen to Abner in this chapter. Moving over to page number 2, there's a lot to go over, so let's try to be as quick as we can. The first section, verses 1 through 5, we're going to be introduced to some of the sons of David. Not all of them, but some of them are listed here. Interestingly, these are the sons that were born to him at Hebron. Interestingly, they were all born to different women. So I have the name of his sons, and then the wife or concubine who he bore that son with in parentheses there. So I'll just read the names of his sons. Amnon, we're going to talk about him in the upcoming chapters. Kileab, Absalom, Adonijah, Shephatiah, and Ithream. Now we jump into the major section of this chapter, verses 6 through 25. Abner decides to leave Ishbosheth and to join David. So there was a long war between the house of David and the house of Ishbosheth, trying to settle this kind of civil war in Israel to determine who was going to be the king of everything. David's house grew stronger and stronger, while Ishbosheth's grew weaker and weaker. Now Abner was a very strategic man. He was positioning himself in Ishbosheth's house to make himself very powerful, very prominent. One day, Ishbosheth confronted Abner about a relationship, a sexual relationship that he had with one of Saul's former concubines. Now, Abner, he was upset that Ishbosheth would even confront him about this. It seems like really the only reason that Ishbosheth remained in power was because Abner was behind him. Abner was kind of the strength and the brains behind the whole operation, as we'll see in the next chapter. But Abner was really angry that Ishbosheth had the audacity to confront him about this. And he basically told Ishbosheth, he's like, look, how about I just fulfill the will of the Lord and give the kingdom over to David? Abner proceeded to do this. He sent messengers to David telling him that he was ready to deliver Israel over to him. Now, David agreed to make a peace treaty with Abner, but it was on the condition that Michal, his first wife, be returned to him. Saul had previously taken Michal away from David and given her to another man. So he says, I'll make a peace treaty with you, but I want my wife back. And Abner must have gone and talked to Ishbosheth and convinced him, because when David sent messengers to Ishbosheth requesting his wife back, Ishbosheth, without delay, went ahead and did exactly as David requested. Abner then met with the elders of Israel, and he agreed with them that they were all ready to abandon Ishbosheth and go and make a pact with David and declare him king. Abner met with David in person at Hebron, and everything was going well. He told them the news, and David was happy about it. However, one guy who wasn't happy about the potential alliance between Abner and David was Joab. Joab was furious that David would make an alliance with Abner, and part of that was because Abner had killed Joab's brother Asahel in a previous battle, so he wasn't a fan of Abner. Verses 26 through 30 tells us what exactly Joab did to Abner. Joab kills Abner. Joab sent secret messengers to Abner, calling him back to Hebron, and when he returned, Joab, quote, struck him in the stomach and killed him. And this was to avenge his brother Asahel, who Abner had previously killed in chapter 2, verse 23. Now, when David learned that Joab had killed Abner, he mourned for Abner and he cursed Joab's house. To finish off the chapter, verses 31 through 39, David buries Abner with honor. David announced a public mourning for Abner because he wanted his countrymen to know that it was not his will for Abner to be killed. And this is probably in part because he knew that Abner had a lot of allies, a lot of people who looked up to him in Israel, especially because he was a powerful man. So he wanted it to be known that he didn't want Abner to be killed. That was Joab's own, doing. David's public mourning for Abner did end up winning him the favor of the people of Israel. So this was probably a pretty wise political move. So that is chapter 3. Hopefully we made it through without any electrical problems. Now, just a quick application before we finish up. It's curious to me that Abner was aware that God had promised to make David the king. And yet, when the battle between Ishbosheth and David broke out, when the civil war started, he decided he was going to side with Ishbosheth. That shows us that there's a difference between knowing the will of God and being obedient to it. That's an important distinction for us to recognize in our own lives in the way that we apply the scriptures. We can have a head full of knowledge about God, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we are a child of God's or that we are a disciple of Jesus's. True followers of God are those who conform their lives to their knowledge of God's will.